each. Hey, everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are RIZIN podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I'm joined by returning guests today. With us, we have Kazuma Kuramoto, who will be taking on Kintaro at RIZIN Trigger 3rd, April 16th this week. Will be available on Live Now with English commentary. Kuramoto-san, thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate you talking to us. Yoshiko onegaishimasu.
よろしくお願いします。
So, first off, I gotta ask that you're taking a fight, pretty quick notice, since the Kato fight. How are you feeling now? How's your overall condition feeling?
前回の加藤戦から比べて結構試合間隔短く試合が
はい。
なりますけども、どうですか、そのことに関してと、あとこの試合に向けての今の調子はどんな感じでしょうか。
前回の試合が近かったこともあって、体重は、絞れたまんま、ずっとそのまま調整できてて、で、調子もすごくいいです。
Well, because it's a short span from the last fight, I was able to keep my weight, at the same level. So in terms of weight cut, I have no problem for this fight. And also in terms of my conditioning and everything else, I'm doing good in terms of fight camp.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on Kintaro? Have you seen him fight before? What do you think of his fighting style? Yeah, tell me what you think about him as a fighter.
どうですかね、じゃあ、対戦相手の金太郎選手の印象なんですけども、映像を見ていらっしゃいますかというのと、どういった彼のファイトスタイルだっていうのを理解しているのかというのと、どういったふうに思ってますか。
やっぱり打撃が強い選手で、えー前手のフック、あとストレートがすごく強烈、あと蹴りもうまいんで、あと、あのーグラウンド状態になった時に立つのもうまいっていうのが、ビデオを見て思ってます。
Well, by watching his fights, my impression of Kintaro is that his power punches are straight and hooks. And he's actually pretty good at getting up from the ground. So those are the categories I have to be careful with.
You see a lot of similarities between him and Kato, your previous opponent, kind of both striker type fighters.
前回の加藤選手も、どちらかというとストライカーなんで、そういった点では共通点みたいなのは感じてますか。
そうですね。打撃の選手、ストライカーの選手に対して僕はもう今ガードをしっかりするっていうのがもう何よりの、あの課題なんで、そういった面では、誰でも一緒ガードするのは当たり前なんですけど、前回の加藤戦に続きストライカーなんで一緒かなと。
Yes, I guess compared to my last opponent, Mr. Kato, they're both a striker, so as Kintaro. So, but point is, my weakness, which I've been working on, is my defense on striking. Means is I have to keep my hands up. My gird against the punching is my one of the big weak points I've been working on. So it's a continuous process from the last fight. So yeah, my impression of him is yeah, same type of striker.
Mm-hmm. So one thing's interesting things you said during the press conference is that you're going to use open palm strikes, and I know that since your Imanari roll ecstasy matchup, seems like you've become a fan of the open palm strikes. Is that correct?
記者会見でもおっしゃったと思うんですけども、小艇をこれから使っていくということで、例の今成ロールファンタジーの試合以来、小艇をこううまく使うということが、今の倉本さんのスタイルになっているように思いますけども、どうでしょうかね、そのことに関しては。
そうですね。小手はすごい武器なんで、これからも使っていこうと思ってます。
Yeah, I believe open palm strike is a very good weapon I could utilize in MMA fights, so I'm looking to use that more in the future.
So it seems a lot of MMA fighters don't use open palm strikes. Probably made most famous by Boss Rutan when he was fighting in Pancrase. But I don't know why do you think a lot of MMA fighters prefer traditional striking versus using palm strikes?
他の MMA ファイターはそんなに小艇使わないじゃないですか。で
はい。
昔、パンクラスに出てバスルッテン選手とかが小艇使ってたんですけども、それはルール上パンチがダメだったからということで、なんで他の選手は小艇を使わないんだと思いますか。
やっぱり知らないんじゃないですかね。あんまりまだ知られてないというか、あと拳の方がやっぱり強いっていうイメージで 使わないのかなと。
Well, I think many MMA fighter hasn't realized the effectiveness of using open palm strikes yet, and also they just have this set mind that closed fists are much harder.
I see. I see. What do your coaches think about the open palm strikes? Are they I guess are they okay with it? Do they have you had to convince them, hey, listen, this is the way I want to fight?
コーチとかにその小手を使うって言ったときに、その小手の使い方に関しては、コーチからなんか反対があったからとか、こういった状況でしか使わない方がいいだとか、まあ、それともコーチを説得して自分が使うようにしたのかとか、まあ、そういった流れみたいなのありますか？
いえ、ミーウィーの山崎さんところで、この間の IRE のグラップリングも小手をやるっていうことで一緒にやってきたんで、まあ、で、MMA でも使えるなっていうことを山崎さんとも話でなったんで、使えるときはどんどん使っていこうっていう感じでなってます。
Well, my head coach, Mr. Yamazaki from Team MiWi, ever since we've been training towards the Imanari Raw Ecstasy fight, we have been discussing about using open palm strikes, and we both agree it's effective on certain positions. So we both think, Mr. Yamazaki tells me let's keep using it, and unless if it's effective, I think we should keep using it. Is our attitude.
Okay, I understand. I want to also get your thoughts on what Kintaro said during the press conference. He said that you better be prepared that he's going to turn this into a dog fight, and that he thinks he can beat you without showing you his style. I'm curious to know if you have any response to what he said during the press conference.
金太郎選手が記者会見で言ったコメントで、まあ、彼のいいところを見せずに、まあ、泥試合になって勝つみたいなことを言ったと思うんですけども、そのコメントに関してはどう思ってますか？
まあ、そうですね、まあ僕のペースにはさせない的な感じだと思うんですけど、ままあ僕のペースに、僕はあんまり人のペースに合わせてやれるタイプじゃないんで、相手の動きを見てやるとかいうタイプじゃないんで、もう完全に自分のペースに、巻き込んでしまおうと思ってます。
Well, I believe Kintaro said something like he's not going to allow me to fight in my own style, own pace, own rhythm. But I actually doesn't like to watch my opponents see what they do and go with flow kind of stuff. My fight style is to go with my rhythm, push my style. So, I'm just going to keep it fight that way.
I also know that you, first of all, congratulations on becoming a father recently. One of the things that a lot of MMA fighters is that as soon as they become fathers, get families, they do tend to change their styles up a lot. I'm curious, it seems like you haven't, at least from your last fight, you haven't changed up your style. Was that ever a consideration, becoming a first-time father?
まず、最近お子さんが生まれたと聞いたんで、
はい。
おめでとうございますということで、ちょっと面白い質問なんですけど、彼曰く、お子さんが生まれてファミリーを持つと、選手たちもちょっとそのファイトスタイルとか、あれにちょっと変化が生じることがあるんですけども、倉本さんは全く違わず、そのままのスタイルを貫いてますが、どうですか、お父さんになったということで、なんかファイトスタイルに影響はありますかね？
いや、ファイトスタイルは影響はないと思うんですけど、やっぱりこう力になりますよね。子供がいる、奥さんがいるっていうので、もっと頑張らないとっていう気持ちはやっぱり芽生えます。
Well, I don't think it has any effect on my fighting style, even though I became a father. But however, the fact that I became a father, I have a family, I have a wife, that became my core driving force of the motivation. So that's something is very plus, for me.
So actually, just to expand and clarify upon that, are you saying that is your drive motivation more even stronger now that you have a family?
まあ、ということはやはりじゃあ家族ができたということによってこの試合に関してとかキャリアに関してのモチベーションのレベルが別段上がったってそういうことですかね？
そうですね。
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. And so after this fight, this will be your second fight this year. I'm curious to know how many more times are you looking to fight this year in RIZIN?
今年もうこれで2試合目になりますけども、まあ、このまま怪我もなければ、今年何試合ぐらいしたいと思ってますか？
今回の合わせて3試合ぐらいはやりたいかなとは思っています。
今回合わせて3試合でトータルで 4？ それとも
トータルで4ですか？あのこれから3。
はい。Okay. Well, I mean, I'm looking to fight 3 more fights actually this year, including the upcoming fights. So, meaning, 4 fights maybe this year.
Okay, gotcha. Do you have anybody who in mind who you're interested in potentially fighting after you win this fight?
After you win this fight, right? You
Yes,
said.
after this, yes.
あの、この次回の試合、この今週末の試合勝った後に
はい。
勝つということで、そしたら次にやりたい相手とか、どういうふうに上がっていきたいだとか、そういったことはありますか？
やっぱりトーナメントで上に行った選手、ベスト4の選手はやっぱりやりたいですね。
Well, I would like to fight those last 4 guys left on the Bantamweight Grand Prix, meaning that, those 4 guys who fought in semifinals. I would like to fight one of those 4 guys.
So semifinals. So that would be that'd be Kai, Azakura Kai, uh Ogi Kubo,
Mhm.
uh
Naoki and
oh yes.
Takagi.
Oh, okay. So what is it if you had a choice between those four, who would be number one to fight on your list?
じゃあ今の4人、その残った4人の名前挙げましたけども、まあ優先順位から言えば誰が一番初めにやりたいですかね。
それは一番は一応優勝した扇久保選手は、向こうもグラップラーっていうところなんで、ちょっとそこを僕が仕留めたいなと思いますね。で、そうですね。
どうぞ、それ次いる誰か。
直樹くんはもう仲いいんで別にやらなくてもいいと思う。
Well, obviously, Ogikobo is the champion. He won that Grand Prix, and also he's a grappler just like myself. So, yes, I do like to fight him and try to nail that fighter before anybody. And out of those 4, actually, Naoki is my friend, so I guess I don't have to fight him. That's how I feel.
I mean to ask you this as well because I know you have history with him in Greco-Roman wrestling, facing off against him. I'm curious to know, would you ever be interested in taking on Ota Shinobu at some point?
アマレスのね、時には対戦したことある太田忍選手とこの MLB でやりたいと思ったことありますか？
いや別にやりたいとこっちからは思わないですけど、僕の方がまだまだ全然やってきてる年数も多いですし、まだそこまで来る前にまだ向こうはもっと戦わないといけないんじゃないですかね。
Well, no, actually, I'm not in the position to say let's fight because I have more experience fights under my belt. So I actually think Ota needs to get more fights to get to my level and to try to say that he can fight me.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, here the other thing also is now that with restrictions in Japan seemingly becoming a little bit not as crazy as it was, what about the potential of facing off against foreign international opponents in RIZIN? Is that something that you're interested as well in?
これで海外から選手が入ってくるようになっても、規制もまあ緩和されたみたいなので、将来的には日本人選手だけでなく、今年の後半は外人選手も入ってくるってことになると思うんですけども、海外からの選手で、こういうの選手でやってみたいみたいなのありますか？
いや、どの選手が来れるかわかんないですけど、やっぱり UFC で活躍してる選手とはやりたいですね。
Well, I'm not sure what kind of fighter the Rising can contract or bring him in, but if I have a choice, I would like to fight a fighter who used to do well in UFC.
Gotcha. One of the things I've also learned about watching Rising Confessions video is that you're into motorcycles. How did you get into motorcycles?
コンフェッションを見て思ったんですけども、まあ、ハーレー乗ったりだとか、まあ、オートバイが好きみたいですけども、まあ、オートバイが好きになったきっかけとか、ちょっとそこら辺のことを教えていただけますか？
僕は音楽とかファッションとかがすごく好きで、そういうのからなんかこう車だったりバイクっていうのがこうカルチャー的につながっていって、でやっぱ僕はアメリカの西海岸とかが大好きで、 そっちのロサンゼルスとかそっちら辺のカルチャーがすごい好きで、そうなるとバイクとか車とかファッション、音楽とかすごく全部がこう同じつながってくるというか、スケートボードだったり。
Well, I'm actually into fashion and music as well. And type of fashion and music I'm into has some kind of relation links to the automobiles and motorcycles and stuff. And I like more like a West Coast kind of style. So that then it becomes about the car or running on highway, that type of stuff. So that's why I got into this motorcycle thing. It's like sort of like getting into skateboard. It's like a West Coast thing. So it's same thing for me.
Gotcha. Is it Harley? That's your Harley Davidson. Is that your favorite brand of motorcycle?
で、じゃあオートバイのじゃあ一番好きなのはハーレーなんですかね、やっぱり。
ハーレーですね。ハーレーのチョッパーっていうカスタム。はい。
It's the my favorite is Harley Davidson. It's that custom thing called chopper style motorcycle. Yeah.
Mm. Do you so when you're traveling from place to place, I'm curious to know, do you take a motorcycle, or do you use motorcycle more for like, kind of just like taking a longer trip, maybe, taking like, a little R&R, a little rest and relaxation? Is that yeah, well, how often do you ride your motorcycle?
じゃあ、オートバイっていうのは普段の生活の中でしょっちゅう使ってるんですか？例えば練習に行ったりとか。それとも、じゃあ、例えば特別な時に仲間とツーリングに行ったりだとか、そういう時に使ってるんですかね？
僕、ハーレーと、あと、普通の足としてスクーターも持ってるんで、スクーター
電動スク
は、
ーターですか？
はい。
うんうん。
えそれはほぼ毎日乗ってますね。で、
Well, I have a two transportation method I use. One is e-scooter, and one is Harley Davidson. So I use e-scooter a lot on daily basis.
Okay, gotcha. One of the things I wanted to note as well is that you are the co-main event of RIZIN Trigger third. Uh, do you eventually want, hopefully for the next, whatever it's a Trigger, Landmark, whatever show, do you want to eventually main event a RIZIN show?
今回は大会セミですけども、これで
はい。
勝ったら次はそのランドマークでも、トリガーでもナンバーでもいいんですけども、どっかで大会メインをやりたいみたいな気持ちはありますか？
そうですね。まあ、もちろん、やっぱりメインで、かっこいい煽り映像で、バイクとか、まあ、もちろん練習中の格闘技の練習ももちろんなんですけど、バイクとか車とかそういうシーン撮ってもらいたいですね。
Oh yeah, of course I would love to be the headliner of the show. And in those workout like pre-introduction videos, I would love to see, of course, my footage of the training too, but also me riding this cool, Harley Davidson and everything else. I think that would be very cool.
Gotcha. Because I didn't know that were the co-main event until I actually saw the fight order. Because I thought they were putting Shrek and Taka Kenshin as a co-main based on his sumo background. Actually, curious to know, what do you think about that fight? That you're right before your fight is the debut of Sudario's brother. What do you think about that whole crazy fight?
彼が言うんですけども、貴健伸選手が今度これでデビューするじゃないですか。で、世間一般の関心があるので、そっちの試合が大会セミになるのかなと思ってたらしいんですよ。だ
はい。
けど、それよりもやっぱり、ね、倉本さんたちが大会セミになったということで、倉本さんの前のその試合になったんですけども、その今回デビューする田中健伸に関してはどう思いますかね？なんか印象とかに。
いや、なんとも思ってないんですけど、まあ、結構強そうっすよね、イメージは。
Well, I've never really thought about anything about him, but in terms of impression, he does look pretty big and tough.
Oh yes, oh no, well he does. Yes, he is a former sumo fighter. So actually, you also mentioned something interesting. That you're at the Mayway gym. Can you tell us a little bit about the gym and what about, because I think you were with Shuto Gym Tokyo originally. Is that correct?
ミーウィーの話をしてるんですけども、もともとシュートジム東京所属だったじゃないですか。
はい。
そこからそれは移ったということだと思うんですけども、それ移った経緯とか、ね、ミーウィーっていうのはどういうチームなんだっていうのをちょっと簡単に教えていただければ。
僕、シュートジム東京でもうゼロから MMA を教えてもらったんですけど、シュートジム東京は夜しか空いてないっていうのもあって、あと、 ミーウィーはもう朝から夜までずーっと開けてて、で、ずーっと山崎さんが見てくれてるんですけど、で、僕は出稽古、首都ジム東京時代から出稽古でお世話になってて、そっからもうすごく、僕のことをすごく見てくれる。本当にこう、その選手に合った教え方をすごくやってくれる、すごく親身になって見てくれる先生で、あのまだまだ僕を伸ばしてくれると思ったんで、移籍させてもらいました。
Well, yes, I used to belong to Shuto Gym Tokyo, and that's the gym where I everything from the beginning of the MMA. They taught me all the fundamentals of MMA and everything else. However, the only problem I had with that gym is that gym only opens at night. So during the day, I had to find some other place to train. That's when I started going to Miwi. And the head of Miwi, Mr. Yamazaki, is all there from morning to night, every day, almost all there, every day. And not only that, he does really watch all the classes, all the fighters, and he does make changes depends on each fighters. So I realized that this is the coach. He can really can look after me and also help me to excel even more. So that's the reason why I changed my team.
Do you foresee yourself ever becoming a coach or opening your own MMA gym at some point? Is that something that you'd be interested in?
将来のことになるんですけども、どっかで MMA のコーチになったりだとか、または MMA のジムを開けたりだとか、そういったことは考えてますか？
いや、まあ、僕はまだ技術も全然足りてないんで、そんな強い選手を育ててるほどの、あの、指導もできないんで、まだそういうことは考えてないですね。
Well, I myself still lacks in terms of MMA skills. I'm still learning. So I don't think I'm in the position to teach anybody and raise a strong fighter. Not yet. So at this point, I haven't even thought about that yet because I'm still a fighter, still improving.
I also I just remembered the Kato fight. I gotta ask about this move you did. You had Kato in side control, and then you picked him up. You picked him up like this and slammed him down. I don't think I've ever seen that in a major MMA fight. I'm curious to know what was your thought process in doing such a side control slam, I guess I'll call it.
前回の加藤選手の試合でちょっとこれ聞きたかったんですけども、彼をサイドにこう持ち上げるような感じで、強引な感じで持ち上げて投げたじゃないですか、スランプしたんですけど、あれって MMA の試合でちょっと見たことないと思うんですけども、あれをやった時のこの心境って何を考えてあれをやったんですかねっていうちょっと。
はい。あの、サイドポジションで、ああいう持ち上げれそうなポジション、よく練習でもあって、まああれが例えば壁際、ケージ際だったら、相手はケージに頼るじゃないですか。そこをあえて持ち上げてしまえば結構簡単に倒せるんですよね。
うん、
で、まああれ中だったんで別にやる必要なかったんですけど、僕グレコでああいう持ち上げ今まで何千回とやってきてるんで、簡単に上げれるんで、ちょっと上げてみたっていうだけですね。
Well, let me tell you this. You know that lifting the opponent from that side position, actually, it's kind of effective, especially in a cage, because if you're in that position, my opponents always try to utilize the cage. But if I lift them up, and that game is out of his, out of his plan. So I usually like to do that, and I've been doing that on training. And in my Greco-Roman bouts, I've done that thousands of times. In terms of against the Kato, it wasn't by the cage or anything like that. So it was in the middle of the ring, so I didn't really have to lift it. But it's easy for me to lift. That's what I just did it.
Okay, gotcha. And speaking of lifting and slamming, I always ask you this: how many suplexes are you? What are your predictions for how many suplexes you plan to do during your fight against Kintaro?
まあ、倉本選手はこれはもう必ず聞かなくちゃいけない質問だと思ってるんで聞きますけども、次の金太郎戦の時はスープレックス何回ぐらい決めますかね。
あの、いつもいっぱいやるって言ってるんですけど、まだあんまりできてないんで、確実に1回は投げたいですね。
Well, every fight, before the fight, I always say I would like to nail many, many suplexes, but I haven't been able to do that so much. So I'm going to be a little bit conservative this time, and by saying that I would like to try to at least execute once.
Okay, gotcha. I think you've only, if I remember correctly, the only time it was your first fight was you've been able to do suplex successfully. Is that correct? If I remember?
倉本さんスタイルのスープレックスだというと、やっぱり初戦の中原選手との試合ですか？あの時に、投げられた時、綺麗なスープレックスを決めた時ってのは、やっぱり一番初めの試合でしたかね、やっぱ。
いや、中原
そうで
選手は
すよね。
投げてない。ライジンは投げてないですね。
はい。No, actually, I've never executed any suplex, like clean suplex on my first fight. So,
Oh,
any fights in Rising.
okay. I thought you had one in your first
Shuto.
fight.
Yeah.
シュート。
Yeah.
Shuto. Oh yeah, so Shuto is like a suplex highlight. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. I'm curious to know, since with all the suplexes and all, I'm curious to know, are you a pro wrestling fan by any chance?
スープレックスいっぱい出してますけど、プロレスファンですかとか、プロレスとか見たりします？
僕全く見ないんです。見
Not
た
at
ことない。
all. I haven't even watched pro wrestling, not even once yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was thinking you might be a pro wrestling fan with being such a fan of suplexes. Actually, so I'm curious to know as well. So, with this fight this week, it'll be this and Rise of 35 will be the first time that I think a lot of new fans will tune in because there'll be a lot of international fighters on the cards, and given that both cards are very strong, I think a lot of new people are going to be tuning in. For anybody that's new that's tuning in, what would you say that they could look forward to to your fights?
今回海外からの選手がいっぱい入ったことによって、特に海外のペーパービューでは、新しいファンが多分見ると思うんですよね。そういった今まで倉本さんの試合を見たことないファンに対して、どういったところを見せたいですかね。どういった見どころとしては。
やっぱり海外の人が見るなら余計ですけど、雷神のルールっていうのはあんまりやってるとこないと思うんで、この間の4点膝だったり、小艇はいいのかな、小艇とか、あと縦肘とかも雷神独特のあり、あとサッカーボールキック、そういう結構すごいむちゃくちゃえぐい攻撃、ライジンでしかできないようなを見てもらえたらなと。
Well, for those who hasn't watched Rising before, I would like to remind them that Rising has the very hardest, tough rules in MMA because you're allowed to knee to the head of the grounded opponent, and you can even do the vertical elbow from 12 to 6, elbows. Also, you can soccer kick to the head and everything like that. So it's very violent. So if you could look forward to see me utilizing those rules, I think that you can enjoy Rising.
Great. Oh yes, of course. Before you go, Kuramoto-san, do you have? I want you to give you an opportunity if you want to plug any your sponsors, social media, YouTube channel if you have one, and all that stuff.
じゃあこれで最後になりますので、ファンとかスポンサーの皆さんに何か言いたいことが一言ありましたらお願いします。
いつも応援ありがとうございます。今回また金太郎選手ってすごい強くて有名な選手とやれることになったんで、しっかり僕がしっかり強さ見して勝って上上がってくんで楽しみにしててください。面白い試合します。
Well, thank you so much for supporting me all the time. I'm facing a guy named Kintaro who is very strong and popular, but I'm gonna look to do a fight that's gonna get me even higher than this level. So please look forward to see my fight.
Yes, and you can see Kazuma Kuramoto take on Kintaro at RIZIN Trigger the third this Saturday for us, Friday night on the East Coast. You can watch it on live now with English commentary from Damian Brown and I presume Joe Ferraro. And with that being said, Kuramoto-san, thank you so much again. Appreciate your time as always. Really looking forward to your fight and being the co-main. It's gonna be an exciting fight. And hopefully we'll finally get to see your first RIZIN suplex this weekend.
今週末頑張ってくださいっていうのと、いろいろありがとうございましたって、今週末、スープレックス、来週での初めてのスープレックスが見れることを楽しみにしてます。
はい。楽しみにしててください。頑張ります。
頑張ります。